This is my new series of Let's Talk, and today I'm talking with Tim Walter, who is a house healer and a life coach. Okay, so this is Let's Talk, and today's guest is Tim Walter, who is a house healer and an alternative life coach. So hello Tim, how are you?
Hello there, I'm fine, thanks very much, yeah.
With my interviews, I normally go through a kind of process. It's really just to give people a chance to tell their story. And I normally start off by asking my guests to tell us how do they get into what they are currently doing.
So yeah, house healer and alternative life coach, it sounds completely bonkers. And I think really I've got into this. I've been doing this about 4 years now. Before that, I did what you do. As you know, for some 30 or so years, I was a filmmaker and writing scripts and that sort of thing, and pitching programs to television channels to try and get them off the air, get them on air, in fact. So a very, very different life, and I've moved into doing the house healing and the life coaching because some years ago, my life kind of changed completely and utterly in that we moved house. Very simple thing. We moved house. We actually moved from the southeast of England across to the Welsh borders. And the house we moved into needed quite a lot of work. So if you can imagine, quite a not a derelict house, but certainly one that needed a lot of refurbishment. And there was part of it that was really, really quite run down and almost was derelict. It certainly had no heating. It had no decoration in it whatsoever. It had been used as a storeroom, like an outhouse for 20 years or so, easily. It was a mess, and it was really, really unpleasant in there. And in fact, we discovered, we were approached by what people usually call a ghost. So, I mean, there's no easy way to say this, that's all it is. We were approached by what was perceived as a ghost. And now there are all sorts of things and all sorts of ways of trying to explain the paranormal. And we had never really particularly paid much attention to this sort of thing up to that point in our lives. And suddenly there was this opportunity, actually is the only word that I can sort of use, to change our perspective on life. Now I'm saying our because my wife was very much along for the journey as well, in this whole perceptual change that we were going through.
How would you describe your life before that event?
I was incredibly normal, and I use that word advisedly these days. I was just running a corporate business. I had no idea about anything that was outside of the five senses, what you could see, feel, touch, taste. And I was very, very stressed trying to earn an income to support my growing family. And caught up in the rat race of doing that. I was also in a circumstance and an environment in an industry where I was required to be a very extrovert character, and that's not me as a person. I'm a very shy person, very introverted. But as a director of video programs or somebody that's producing a conference and running a conference, I had to be very visible, had to be very much out there, very much gregarious, and that really isn't my nature. So I was very, very stressed on many, many levels. And in fact, I had, before we moved house and this extraordinary experience occurred to us, I had been to see a therapist to try to learn some relaxation techniques, which indeed did help. But I was also at that point busily on my way to drinking myself into an early grave as well, which wasn't particularly helpful at the time.
Okay, so again, the constraints of this world basically sort of hammering away at you, and kind of in a way kind of pulverizing you, because I kind of know that kind of process. I've worked the same way as an editor. I've been under stress, working long hours, found myself in hospital a few times, just trying to cope with the everyday requirements of work. So then you move to this house and you're approached by something from your perspective which is unusual. Tell us about how your perceptions of that event, how did they first happen? What did you see or hear or feel?
It seems really, really banal looking back on it, and this is one of the reasons why it didn't strike us at the time as being like, oh my God, there's something going on, it's very weird. It was nothing like the sort of impression that one gets from the media or from feature films or television of paranormal type of activity. So the very first thing, it's a long time ago and you have to forgive me because I do get slightly mixed up in the order of things, but one of the very early things that was occurring was very simple, very mundane, very ordinary, which was the LED clock on our electric cooker would change. Now, I don't mean it would flash. When a LED clock goes off, if there's been a power cut, power comes back on, the thing's flashing zeros. That wasn't what our clock was doing. What the little clock was doing was just changing time. And one of our friends noticed that this clock was completely wrong. He reset it, and sure enough, half an hour later, of course, or something like that, it was completely wrong again. And this went on for a long time. We didn't really pay much attention to that. We just thought, well, that's a faulty cooker, faulty clock. Big deal. We did get the classic sort of lights flickering. Lights would flicker on and off in different rooms. We did have feelings of being watched. We did have feelings, I did. I certainly had. I remember one particular evening where I was alone in the house for some reason, I can't remember why, and got completely spooked. But these were very, very, very ordinary things. What happened was we had some soon after we moved in, we had some builders in to do some work, and they were in the back muttering away to themselves, this couple of old guys, and they came out and said, look, I don't really know how to say this to you, but we think it would be a really good idea if you got your house spiritually cleared. And we're like, huh? Why? What? They introduced us to some people that did come round with dowsing rods, actually, and find some information out. And that was how we actually found out that Jane was there, this lady called Jane, this disincarnate spirit, if you like. Now, there was other stuff going on. But as I say, it was so ordinary and so normal that we just didn't really kind of feel that it was particularly bizarre and wacky.
We have more on the way, so please subscribe to this channel and check out the link below if you'd consider becoming a patron to help us keep making more content. Thanks for watching.